Alright, hello everyone. In this video, we're going to cover how to set up a virtual network and a virtual machine in the Azure platform. Um, this is going to be pretty quick because, it's not that difficult to set up both of these resources or well, both of these services. And the thing is, I was thinking about doing two separate videos. I may still do this, or could make this into a two-part video. Um, because of the fact that these services are not very hard to set up, and I'm going to be showing you how to set it up at a very basic level. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so if you logged into your Azure platform, you're going to see pretty much a setup just like this. Um, and first thing that we're going to do, we're going to set up our virtual network. So if you want to set up virtual networks, one thing you could do, you could click on it right here, which is virtual networks. Or if you have it in your recent resource, you go ahead and click on one of your recent resources that you was working on. Or you go into the all services tab right here and just go ahead and filter, go into the search bar, filter for virtual networks. And they have two. They have a classic and then they have the regular. So you don't want I don't recommend using the classic because eventually that's going to be done away with. So it's best just to go ahead and just stick with the regular one, and just stick with that. Or there's a third way you can search for resources or services in Azure, and all you got to do is just go here and type in. Well, if it's in your recent services that you used, you go right here, or you just go into the search bar, type in virtual networks. And I use the search bar more than the other ways that I've just shown so far to search for not only just virtual networks but any resource that's in any resource in Azure. Um, and we see that there's no virtual networks in this account, so we're gonna go ahead and just create one. All right, so there's a couple things. This is your first time using Azure. The first thing that you're going to see is you're going to see a subscription. A subscription basically tells Azure who's going to be paying for this resource if there's going to be services that needs to be paid for within this resource. So that's what the subscription is. That's just basically you saying who's paying for this. A resource group, basically you got to select the resource group. Resource group is going to be pretty much the container that holds your virtual network. So basically, where is this virtual network going to be stored at? So what I'm doing is I'm taking this virtual network and I'm storing it within my resource group, which is DAM demo. All right, so you select the region that you want it to be at, and then you give it a name. Which mine's always stick to a naming convention of try to say like VN dash not just put lab. Then we go to IP addresses. And you can stick with we're gonna stick with the default IP address, but you can change this if you wish to do so. Or you could change the default as well. Like for example, you can go here because when I make this change here, it's gonna basically get rid of the default subnet. But I don't mind taking extra time to show you how to do this. Because right now with a /16, you get almost 65,000 addresses. Well, more than over 65,000 addresses. So you could change this address space to 20. You could set it to 24. You can even set this address space to 32, and it still will use it as long as this address space. Think this address space as your CIDR block, and basically this is a segment. This is your network that you're making, that you're building. You could just basically you create a private network within the Azure cloud that's strictly for yourself. That's pretty much all a virtual network is. So right now I'm going to stick with the default of the 10.0.0.0/16. And what I'm going to do, since I went on ahead and I edited earlier, I edited the default address space earlier. What we're going to do, I'm going to have to add a subnet because it already tells you it's just that you basically need to have a subnet within a virtual network. So just go ahead and add it. And once again, I always try to stick with a scheme naming convention. I always stick with SN for subnet dash labs. So this basically says this is my lab subnet. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a piece of that 65,000 addresses out of here. As long as my subnet does not go outside of this /16 range here, I'll be fine. So I'm basically going to do a 10.0.1/0/24, taking about 251 of those addresses out of that 65,000. And just to let you know, Azure does take 5 addresses for itself. A lot of those got people that say, oh, it's 254. No, it's 255 when you on the Azure network, because 251, because Azure takes 5 of those addresses. Now, if you have a subnet gateway, if you're advanced and stuff like that, you know how to set up a network gateway, that's fine. And you also could add service endpoints where you could basically say only but particular services can use this particular subnet. But we're just going to stick with just creating our subnet right now and just add that here. Go into security, keep everything the same, leave everything default. I'm not going to create any tags for it. Go to review and create. And once you get the green validation pass, you're pretty much good to go. And also for automation purposes, if you wish to learn a little bit more about how to script within Azure, you can also download the template for automation purposes and just review the script of how Azure deployed this virtual network, and you can learn how to do it yourself. Now, what it does is after it does the validation, it gives you this review. It gives you pretty much a summary of everything it basically just gives you a summary of everything. So what you do is go ahead and click create. Because everything looks good, just click create. And it's going to go to this deploying in progress screen. Sometimes it don't take long to deploy a virtual network. So like we saw, it didn't take that long. So now we go to our resource. And what I like doing, I normally don't like just clicking on deploying resource, I like going here to the resource group. And I'll always go ahead and I open it up in another tab. And I like working within the resource group itself. The resource group just shows the resource group shows you a few things, but the main thing that I wanted to do, I want to see, we go into the overview tab, you see all the resources that are in this resource group. So I go ahead and click on here, click on this lab, click on the VN lab, the virtual network lab that we created, put that here. Click on that here because I can always come back here and things like that later on. But let's look. But here's our virtual network that we created, and it has the /16 IP address CIDR block that we've created. It shows our IP like I said, our address space. Like I said, it was our CIDR block. You can add another IP address space if you wish so there. You got your connected devices, you got your subnet, and all these other things we'll go over in other videos like peering and other things. So right now, this is pretty much it for how to create a virtual network. Now we're going to go over how to set up a virtual machine to go inside this subnet. Well, not inside the subnet, but inside this virtual network. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this video off right here, and we're going to go ahead and start that in the next video. All right.